Here we go. We're live. Welcome, everyone. Thanks to everyone joining in. A massive thank you to everyone, actually, because we have been running now for 14 episodes and everyone's stuck through these times and keep tuning in. And it's awesome to see. We're often getting photos and videos of families putting it up onto their TV and making Thursday nights at 7:30 a ritual within their families, which is pretty cool to see. So I'm very lucky and very grateful that I get to spend my Thursday nights with you and engaging with people like Joey tonight and many other advocates from right around the world and experts that are doing wonderful work in their given field. So thank you all to you at home for listening and tuning in and to keep providing people with the resources and tools in these really difficult times is really important. So I also want to start the same way we always do. Thanks to our sponsors, the Resilience Agenda, Hadley Fisher and the team over in Switzerland. Also working out of Australia. We've got our Resilience Agendas, which I swear by. And I say it every week, but these things are spot on. The ability to make each day a learning obstacle or give you something new to learn and grow with. I mean, May is about mindfulness and awareness and presence, and all that stuff's really important. So as I always say, thanks to Hadley and the team at the Resilience Agenda, we'll be giving away one of those Resilience Agendas again tonight. Joey will be looking out for people who engage. If you would like one, drop a green love heart in the comments to know that you're listening and engaging with us, and we will continue to give those away to those that are interested. Also, remember that these episodes are all with experts, and Joe Williams is certainly that. However, we have a wealth of knowledge and we have a wealth of experiences between the two of us. But if you are in suicidal crisis or worried about a loved one, please remember to ring Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. Lifeline on 13 11 14 and Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. Now, I've cut out all the other thank yous at the start of the night because this is quite an introduction. I know I harp on my introductions every time because it's about respect, and the people that I have on, I have a wealth of respect for, and this one's no different. But this one comes with a lot of accolades and achievements and a massive journey, which we're going to get into tonight. But my guest, long-term friend, mentor for a good part of my journey, while I've been in this mental health space. We've traveled together, spoke together, appeared in Suicide, the Ripple Effect, the documentary together, which some of you may have seen. But check out this resume. Joey, sit tight for a minute, brother, because this goes for a fair bit. So Joey's a proud Wiradjuri man and Walgaloo. Did I say that right, Joey?
You got it, brother. You got it.
I got it. I was stressing there. First Nations Aboriginal man, born in Cowra. Do I say that right?
Cowra.
Is that where Paddy Lawson lives?
No, Paddy's at Corowa.
That's where I'm getting
I'm from Cowra.
So he's in New South Wales, raised in Wagga, father of 5 beautiful kids. Joe played in the NRL for South Sydney Rabbitohs, for Penrith Panthers and the Canterbury Bulldogs before switching across, similar to Anthony Mundine, professional boxing in 2009. Joe is a 2-time WBF World Junior Welterweight Champion and has also held the WBC Asia Continental title. So no mug on the sports field. Although forging a successful professional sporting career, Joe battled the majority of his life with suicidal ideation and bipolar disorder. After a suicide attempt in 2012, Joe felt his purpose was to help people who struggle like he did with mind and behavioural health challenges. Through tailored workshops, Joe talks of dealing with adversities, struggles, resilience, addiction, connection, emotional well-being, and healing trauma, which is really important, which we'll touch a lot on tonight, through communities, correctional services, sporting clubs, and workplaces. We're also going to talk about Joey's shift, and he'll know what I'm talking about. You won't just yet, but he's doing a lot of different work than I've just read out now, so that's going to be really interesting to talk about too. As I said, Joey was raised in Wagga and he won Wagga Citizen of the Year in 2015 for his committed work within the community mental health and suicide prevention sector and was named a finalist in the National Indigenous Human Rights Awards. In 2018, Joe was awarded Suicide Prevention Australia's highest honour, a Life Award, for his excellence in communities within the suicide prevention sector, and in 2019 was named a dual winner of the Australian Mental Health Prize. Now a published author, Joe's autobiography, Defying the Enemy Within, shares not only his life story, but offers practical tools that anyone can implement into their lives to improve and maintain their emotional well-being. And I can definitely vouch for that, given that I have read the book and used some of those tools and practices that he's taught me over the years. Joe also contributed to the book Transformation, Turning Tragedy into Triumph, and features in the global documentary Suicide, the Ripple Effect, as I mentioned before. Joey Williams, you are the real deal, mate. An honest and down-to-earth inspiration. Your story may appear to be one of struggle, but really There's a lot of triumph in that. I know you are moving into different spheres and formats as we speak with your work, and we'll get to that. But thank you for taking the time for these people tonight, mate. Thank you for everything you do on the hardest and sharpest edges of life and love. But most importantly, thank you for going against the grain in this industry. The world needs more people like you that are willing to challenge and shake the world up a little bit so that we can get positive, everlasting social change. So, Joey Williams, a brother, a mentor, and a lifelong friend. Welcome to Confined by Walls, Not by Heart, mate.
Thanks, Matty. Pleasure to be joining you this evening. I get a bit cringy when people read out, things like that, because it's wonderful to get awards and accolades and stuff, but it's definitely, as you know, it's not why we do the work. It's just trying to help people through difficult times, help people to understand what's going on in their mind, and try and redirect our energy and thoughts and processes to what we're going through at the time. So I've been lucky. I've been really lucky, mate, that I had a life of playing sport. I was raised well. I had some good values in my life, and I stuffed up a hell of a lot, but and I still continue to do. I ain't perfect by any measure. It's just I think I'm a little bit more aware of different things now that happen with me, that have happened to me, and stuff that I've even done myself, which have hurt and impacted on other people. And it's a constant learning curve in this thing we call life. And I'm lucky to still be above ground, to be able to keep learning, mate. And that's every day for me is a lesson that we try and help people in different ways.
I love that, mate. And there's plenty of lessons without your journey that we'll get to. Let's take it right back to the start, because as you said, you had a very good upbringing, and I'm aware of who your father is and what an incredible man he is, and a lot of great support around you. When was the first time you started to? I mean, you got off on the right foot from what I've read and looked at over the years. I mean, quite a remarkable sporting career. When did it all start to go downhill, or did you notice the signs and symptoms of depression creep into Joey Williams?
It's probably I have to say, the way we frame it is when we say things go downhill. Like for me, my challenges started at quite a young age. I was only around about the age of 13, 14-year-old when I first started experiencing suicidal ideation, and that was on the back of some fairly significant head trauma. And we know the research now around head trauma and the impacts of concussion and the impact on the brain, what it can cause mentally and emotionally. But for me, like at a younger period of my life, like that had started happening at 13-year-old. But although it was constant from that age, the skates didn't seem to slip under me until I was more of an adult. Like I used alcohol a lot as a young fella, like a lot of young fellas do, But for me, it wasn't about being mischievous or getting up to no good. For me, it was about trying to silence what it was that I was going through in my head. I've had a constant dialogue inside my head from a very young age that second guessed and questioned every decision that I made, every single day, every interaction that I have. Extreme paranoia in interactions that I have with people, which talks to me and tells me that I'm worthless, tells me that I'm no good, tells me that I don't deserve to be, in certain situations, ever since I was a kid. And as I mentioned, like for a huge part of my life, I thought that was just what happens. I thought that everyone went through that. And it wasn't until much later in my journey when I started to get some therapy around, I was convinced, I was absolutely convinced that I lived with a split personality, because it was like I'd had 2 or 3 different people sitting inside my head talking to me. Like they were that vivid and that real that I thought that it was somebody there. And it was through that process of therapy when I was based in the States, actually, the therapist, he said to me, he goes, everyone has these dialogues, Joe. Everyone has it. And he normalized it a little bit for me. You know, he said,
Yeah,
everyone has these dialogues. It's just that yours is extremely negative. And you've put about certain practices, values, rituals that has helped to silence and keep it at bay. You know, and I did that for, again, as a kid. You know, if it's happening since I was 13-year-old, I've done it for, I won't go into my age, and you could probably, you know, the grey hairs a little bit longer.
Your camera might be saving you there a little bit, mate.
But, it's happened for a lot of years in my life, mate. You know, over 20 odd years that this stuff has happened. And if I've put these practices into my life for a massive part of my life that has helped me to control, keep at bay, manage, then it's probably evidence that it's worked.
I think that's really important. You talked about getting the help and support, but I mean, being as young as you were when you received help and support and that dialogue for you, I mean, not being as young as you were, I mean, you mentioned it being in America. Who were the sort of people that encouraged you to seek help and support? And when was it all you knew at the time?
No, for me, see, again, going through it from a young age, and let's rewind the clock a little bit. You know, 20 odd years ago, is you don't jump up and down and say that I've got voices in my head, especially when I'm playing in, you know, at a high level sport. And, you know, again, like this is only a normalized conversation these days, you know, and still some people feel uncomfortable with being able to speak about it. But going back, way back then, you know, it was a really difficult thing to start to talk about. And again, I didn't think that it was anything abnormal. I thought that everyone went through it. I just thought that, you know, I was down to my luck a little bit. And it wasn't until, you know, being around people that were constantly in the eyes of therapy and different help settings, did I start to get some help with that? You know what? When I was playing in the NRL, I had some help and support from sports psychs and things like that. So some of the leading sports psychs around the place that come in and try and work out what was going on with this kid. You know, like he was red hot for 3 or 4 weeks, and then you wouldn't see him for 3 or 4 weeks. You know, it was I was going fantastic. But then, you know, the wheels would fall off and you wouldn't see me, you know.
Can I stop there, Joey? Just because I want to say something. I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but it's something that, I mean, this wouldn't be uncommon to you to hear. There is a lot of misconception there about First Nations people when they are in elite sports and that the element of them doing go and walk about and those disappearing. And I mean, the inconsistency that comes with some of them as well. And I mean, I don't want to talk out of school there or be derogatory towards it. It's something that gets mentioned all the time, and you've just brought it up there. What is that? What is the going in for three weeks being red hot? You know, the flashes of brilliance and then the disconnection for a few. Is there something correlates between that?
No, for me personally, it's you know, it was more the emotional pain that I was going through. You know, I was, you know, if I was struggling to turn up to training and rip in and be the best rugby league player I could be, I was struggling to stay alive, man. You know, the constant fight and battle that I was having behind the closed doors, it was like when I got by myself, I could start to deal with what I was going through to the point where it wasn't medically or through therapy. It was I could let my guard down. So constantly when I was in the public eye, it was always I'd have to be an act. It would have to be an act because of the stigma that was associated with that. But also, again, you talked about the conversation, and it comes up with a lot of people. Aboriginal people go walkabout. When non-Aboriginal people go walkabout, they're on
nothing said.
They're on leave. You know, when we you know, for us, and I had it spoken to me by you know, a fantastic cultural man, and he how he normalized it to me and how he explained it to me is that he said, brother, we don't get homesick. Our spirit just gets called home. And for Aboriginal people who are so fiercely connected to one spirit, but two, the spirit is connected to the land where you're from. And again, let's look at, you know, if you look back at our way of living, a spiritual connection to that particular part of the land for thousands of years, right? So it's difficult to come away from certain settings and be in this place where it's not so comfortable. So when we talk about going walkabout, it's just a fantastic cultural mentor, elder slash, a brilliant man who I've got the utmost respect for, a man called Uncle Paul Gordon. He talks about the ability to walk in two worlds. We hear this, we're all one people and we all walk in the one world, but, we believe we don't, and if we're all one people, and this could get some people off the, it could, and me, Matty, I like challenging people's thoughts.
Oh, that's why we get along.
People say to me, we're all one people. I say, cool, are you Aboriginal? And they're like, no. Oh, well, we're not all one people then. Or there's only one race, we're the human race. Well, how come one part of the human race get treated differently? So, and again, all of that has impact on spiritual and emotional well-being, which then impacts on First Nation people of this country having some of the highest suicide rates in the world. So it's all intertwined and interconnected, and the more we can learn about showing respect and walking with respect, people they have this love for the term reconciliation. We have Reconciliation Week. I don't use the term reconciliation because if we look at reconciliation, to reconcile is to heal a broken relationship. Let's be frank, man. There wasn't a relationship and hasn't been a relationship for 230 odd years. It's time to start one. When we start a relationship and start to learn about each other, that's when we can start to walk together.
So important. And there's so much of your journey, Joey, and I don't want to skip over this part because I want to get to the work that you do now that ties into looking after First Nations young kids and people all over Australia. But there is an incredible sporting journey there that we can pick and choose a lot out of right now. Because I'm gonna walk you back into it. I mean, you started out in the NRL prior to boxing, a very young kid, very red hot, from memory, scouted. Highly touted, highly regarded, made your way into the NRL system. Take it away.
I was lucky. Again, I had some good guidance. My dad played in the NRL, which was the Winfield Cup back then. My dad played in the Winfield Cup, and I was getting quite a bit of interest from NRL teams at the time as a young kid. So I was 13-year-old playing in the under-18 competition, and I'd even played a first grade game at the age of 13 against the Newtown Jets. When my journey come up into boxing with Johnny Lewis, but he spoke to one of his Newtown Jets legend, Chickamore, and he said there's this kid in Wagga and he's only 13. He's playing first grade down there, and I was lucky that again I was guided well, and I signed my first contract with the Sydney Roosters. And people that know my journey know that I was with the Roosters, but I guess playing a large proportion of my days at the Rabbitohs, they're big rivals. So I like to stick it to the Roosters a little bit, but people are like, hey, come on a minute, you started there. So, but I was in that conversation with all of the NRL clubs that were trying to sign me as a young fella. Mum and Dad were smart. Mum and Dad said, we don't care about money. We don't care even about rugby league. What we care about, because we know that a rugby league career can be 10 years or it can be 10 minutes. What we care about is this boy's education. And the club who gives my boy the best education is going to get him. It went from a conversation about money to a conversation about who can give him the best schooling opportunities. And for me, I was lucky that my very first contract, the scholarship contract with the Roosters, I signed a deal that paid for my entire schooling, from year 7 right through to year 12, which, I was lucky that I was well educated and on the back of a rugby league career that finished at 24 and 25 and then get me head punched around for a couple of years. I'm now can string a few sentences together and talk and have intellectual conversations with people, which at times takes them back a little bit.
Now, I want to get to that too, because there is a lot of I've got some notes here about the concussion and the damage that you have done to the scon, which is really important being on a mental health and wellbeing show here. But I mean, you were, this is where you started to recognise that a lot of those problems were existing, and this is where your football started to take a little bit of a turn. You're heavy into the alcohol, heavy into the drugs. Do you want to explain some of that and some of those thoughts and feelings that you were going through in order to reach for the bottle as often as you were?
Yeah, I think, for me, alcohol and drugs was a mask, and we see it in so many communities now. We see people who are in emotional and physical pain. They reach for the bottle, and for me, it was no different. But for me, it wasn't about drinking or taking drugs, the effect of what it did, or even the social inclusion that it had. For me, drinking and taking drugs was about masking a pain. The only time I felt free was when I was completely out of it. So for me, it was escaping what was really going on. Now, I realized that alcohol and drugs was becoming quite problematic in my life because, by this stage, I was playing in the NRL and I was, I started fairly red hot in the 2004 season. At the end of the 2004 season, 2005 season, I started woeful because all that off season was the first time that, I had an off season as an NRL player and everyone patting on the back and, everyone wanting to shout your beer and whatever else that come with it. I put on 10 kilos in that off season just from partying and come back, thought that everything would be easy for me, and it wasn't. And then I realized that I had to work hard. And the 2005 season was, I think I played about 8 or 9 games, but again, extremely inconsistent. I'd be good for a couple of weeks, then inconsistent again. And then that the conversation that you alluded to earlier in the conversation, Matty, was, he's just one of those boys who are a little bit inconsistent. He can't get his game on track, so he's inconsistent. He needs to go back and work harder. And I didn't see that as the priority until I realized that my career was beginning to go off the rails. And rugby league for me, although I wanted it ever since I was a kid, drinking and taking drugs and being the life of the party, because what alcohol and drugs did for me was, when I was playing first grade and I was the star and I was signing autographs and taking pictures and all of that, my ego was out of control. But when I was playing reserve grade, it wasn't that anymore. So I had to have something that kept my ego up there. And that's what alcohol and drugs did for me. And I realized that it was pretty problematic and some ups and downs in relationships and ups and downs in the consistency of my career. I decided to put some positive steps in my life. And the first thing, if everything that was problematic that was happening in my life, the one common denominator was alcohol and drugs. So if there were fights, if there was trouble on the weekend, if there was bad games, everything that was in common with it was that party lifestyle. So I looked to eliminate that, and it was going back a few years now. So 15 years in December, I haven't had a drink for. Drugs not as long as that. And again, we're talking about what addiction can do to people and the how much it can convince you. I convinced myself that I needed marijuana medicinally. I was like, it's legal in America, so it might as well be legal in Australia, and I need it for medicinal purposes. That's how mad I was in addiction. So it hasn't been 15 years for me off drugs. It's only been I think 4 years. But again, it's something that's constant with me that I have to keep an eye on. So I gave away alcohol and drugs and anything that would put me in the position to do that, because I knew that sobriety had to be my number one priority, and that meant that I lost friends, I lost teammates, I lost family members. I had to do it for me, and the people who were going to be supportive stuck by me through that. And it's been, as I said, 15 years in December that I haven't had a drink. And, you know, I without doubt know that I would have been, you know, dead or locked up if I stayed on that path.
Absolutely. And that's what I mean. We've got big incarceration rates for First Nations people, and a lot of them don't have the tools, just like us, don't have the tools and resources to deal with our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Was there anything that was happening within the NRL system to support people in that emotional distress, or what was the sort of setup for an NRL system?
Yeah, we look back at it now, and you know, it's a hell of a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
You know, not saying that, you know, I had a CEO say to me, you know, when I said no, I'm not drinking anymore. I had a CEO say to me, it's just one of those phases. You know, how long will this last? You know what I mean? A CEO of a rugby league team in the NRL was like, this is just a phase. How long is it going to last for him? You know, and
isn't that shit?
I can proudly, well, it's a sign of the times too, Matty. You know, like rugby league back then was you play hard, you party hard. You know, it's the way it was. And there were so many guys that could do that. But knowing addiction and knowing, you know, the stuff that we know now, it didn't work for me. And, you know, I didn't want to go back on that path to tempt it, you know. Again, the mind still says to me now, you know, maybe you could just go back and have a couple and see how you go. And I'm like, it ain't worth it, Joe. You know, I can go out on a Friday and come home on Monday and, you know, be dancing on tables all weekend. And it's probably, you know, not the sort of life that I want, you know.
Five little ones at home now doing that, mate.
So yeah, but, you know, without doubt, you know, that was a huge trigger into me getting on a better path. And but I realized that once I gave away alcohol and drugs, that I gave away alcohol and drugs, and I'd lost connection to everything that I'd loved. As in, you know, my I didn't really have anything in common with my teammates anymore because you know, we played footy and we'd party. Now I wasn't enjoying my footy and I wasn't partying anymore. So at the end of the 2008 season, and the 2008 season, I probably, you know, it's safe to say that I lost interest in it a hell of a lot longer than at the end. You know, I was talked about for some smaller contracts and stuff like that, but, you know, nothing that was gonna you know, keep me interested in playing rugby league at that level. So I took a different path and started to focus on the work that I do now, not in suicide prevention, but in Aboriginal youth and Aboriginal youth and education. And that's when I walked into a boxing gym.
Love that. It's a place that saved your life. Let's talk about boxing and the great Johnny Lewis.
Without a doubt, mate. You know, and it was the year before. It was the 2007 season. A first grade player we were playing with at South at the time, Jamin Lowe. Jamin and Jamin's brother Benny, you know, both loved the knuckle and both did a bit of boxing. And Jamin was training with Johnny Lewis down at Woolloomooloo PCYC, and I ran into Johnny in Erskineville, and I was like, and I'd loved boxing since I was a kid. My dad was an amateur boxer. I loved boxing more than I loved rugby league. If there was a footy and the fights on, I'd watch the fights 10 times out of 10. There was an awe about boxers. It's like, you know that they're humble, but you don't want to say the wrong word to them. You know, it's just something about boxers that always intrigued me. I met Johnny Lewis and I said, Johnny, my name's, he goes, I know exactly who you are, Joey. How are you, mate? Chickamore told me about you when you were a 13-year-old.
Who was some of the people that Johnny Lewis was training at the time? He's trained some rippers.
He trained a couple of decent fighters. He trained Costa-Zoo. Trained Costa-Zoo. Trained another little bloke called Jeff Fennick. So trained a fair few fighters. You know, by any means, I ain't in their class or anything like that. But it was about what Johnny did for the mind for me. You know, Johnny, mate, with Johnny Lewis in your corner, Johnny convinces you if Mike Tyson's on the other side of the ring, you're a chance. You know?
That can't be good sometimes in boxing, though, Joey.
but what Johnny did for me was made me believe in myself. What Johnny did for me was and you alluded to earlier, you watched the track or the short clip with Johnny Lewis with the ABC. I think it was about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. I was asked to write a letter to someone who has been influential in my journey, and I wrote this letter to Johnny Lewis because Johnny Lewis gave me the tools to be able to stand there in tough times and bite down on my mouth guard and swing.
It's a lot of great correlations between boxing or combat sports and our mental health and well-being, isn't there?
Oh, mate, I say it all the time. Like, as a rugby league, I wasn't a tough man as a rugby league player. I didn't like getting dirty on the best of days, So going into a boxing ring, people laughed at me, But boxing taught me how to be tough in those tough times. Because on a boxing field, I was athletically gifted where I could get myself around the field a little bit. In a boxing ring, there weren't many places to hide in there. So for me, Johnny taught me how to, as I said, search deep within myself. As a rugby league player, when I searched deep within myself, I didn't like the person I found. And as a boxer, which gave me the tools for the rest of my life, when I search deep within myself now, I like the person that's standing there. He's a person that I'd sit side by side with and get in the trenches with. Boxing taught me that.
Yeah,
boxing taught me how to be mentally tough, which, again, you talked about the mental struggle outside the ring. It taught me how to stay alive. I had voices, ideas, thoughts, and plans of suicide every single day since I was 13, like an inner dialogue inside my head telling me that I was worthless and that I needed to die. I was playing in the NRL at the time, and I was fighting as a professional boxer at the time. I had this little thing inside my shoulder. I'm sitting on my shoulder, inside my head, just whispering at me, telling me that I was worthless. Every single day, in every interaction I had, it would just plant these hideous thoughts inside my head that it made me not want to be here anymore. And I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for the trainers I had: Johnny Lewis, Billy Hussein, Jeff Malcolm, my dad, all of these guys that are
massive one.
Oh, mate, all of these guys who have just second by second, round by round, just ask you to give a little bit more of yourself, which has all helped me in the long run with my mental battles.
Yeah, because watching all the clips back of yourself today and doing my homework and having you on, Joey, that thank you video from Johnny Lewis, the thing that really impressed me was the fact that you said to him, Johnny, now I know you kick yourself or sometimes get a little bit down that you couldn't see, that you feel like you didn't see the signs and symptoms of what you were experiencing and feel like he must have missed something.
He was filthy at himself.
Yeah, filthy at himself for that. But what you said to him was beautiful, was the fact that, Johnny, you didn't see the signs and symptoms of me going through that emotional distress, because when I was going through that emotional distress, it was never in your boxing gym, because I felt so alive, I felt so loved, and I felt so worthwhile. And I think it's huge for what boxing can do and be for a lot of people. I know that's exactly what the place was for me. I went to boxing after meeting you. I turned to boxing, and I'm shit at boxing, but I turned to boxing because of what you had told me the place provided for you when I was at my worst. And when I went in the boxing gym, I had 2 conversations with the 2 professional boxers in there at the time that I looked up to. And both of them in separate conversations said to me, I asked them why they boxed, and they both said nearly word for word, Matt, I boxed to keep my head out of a noose. And it was there, that very moment, that I recognized how important boxing was to not only me, to not only you, but to so many people around the world. Yet for a long time, it's been a brutal, ugly, frowned upon sport, but it's such a beautiful art for our wellness.
You know what? It almost brought me to tears. You're saying that stuff about Johnny, because it's the beauty of the man he is, And I said it. I said, Johnny, mate, you never ever saw me not well, because when I was with you is when I was strong.
Yeah.
And it was again like that in that boxing ring that, mate, it's kept me to where I am now. It's helped me to sit in front of you tonight, matey. And again, I say it to people every day of the week, and people say, I don't want my kid to be a boxer. Well, what boxing does is is teach you not to go out looking for fights.
Oh, it's a discipline. It's an art.
Because in the gym, there's always someone better in there.
Yeah,
they can
of
always
course
smack
there is.
in the mouth when you step out of line, you know.
Oh, it's just got so many good correlations. I mean, the art of boxing about keeping your hands up and keeping guarded. It's the same way we walk around blasé in the world and get around doing things. Life's going to punch you around. So it's about, you know, if it's when you get lazy, trauma happens to you, pain happens to you. It's the same as boxing. So, I mean, there's just so many good correlations. And what it really helped for me was the discipline of going again. And when it gets hard, keep going. There is no out. It's just it's that squared circle, and it's just that you got to go for it. So, I mean, the discipline of boxing can teach kids so many good things. And as you said, just it's a calming technique. I mean, I was a hothead with a lot of fear and anger and aggression for a long time before I stepped in a boxing ring, and then all of a sudden, it's that confidence of knowing that you can actually fight if you need to, but of knowing that you don't actually ever need to, because there's always ways around it.
Well, I'd rather talk myself out of a fight now than
me too.
Hold my hands up. Like, I got my head punched around too much as it was.
Here we go. We'll throw one up then of your head bashed in. Here we go.
Couple of black eyes there. It's my face wasn't as swollen that night as it was the next day. I'll give you the tip.
There's still a WBC belt there, Joey, though.
Oh, man, that's the thing, you know. Like, I'm super thankful that, you know, I didn't ever claim to be the world's best boxer. I didn't ever claim to be Australia's best boxer. What boxing did for me was keep me alive, and you know, I've got a couple of belts now that you can't buy at Lowe's or Big W that I can give my kids to, you know, and you know, if you know when I go out in the world, you know, my kids can look back and you know, and be proud of that. You know, I can be proud of that, because I know that a stack load of, you know, blood, sweat, and probably more tears in the boxing ring, you know, got those achievements, and I'm thankful for that, you know.
Oh, you should be, mate. It's an incredible career that you've forged out. But let's move in away from the sport. I mean, we know how good you were there, but I mean, I think that's not even your true talents, mate, and the work that you do now, and the things that you do to keep well, but you share with a lot of other people around the world is your true talent and your calling. How did you move into the field of well-being, and what were some of the things that got you to a place to be well enough to be in this field?
I think, you know, it was. I say it again. Some of the absolute most amazing experiences I've been to in traveling around the world, in you know, boxing for titles, in you know, the best places that I've been to physically, emotionally, mentally, is because of the most darkest and terrifying places. You know, I look back and survived a suicide attempt in 2012, and you know what that suicide attempt did for me is that it gave me a thought process that, you know, I'm thankful to be alive. You know, it gave me a thought process that there's something bigger than me out there that kept me here. Because if I had it my way, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now. Something bigger than me kept me here, and I needed to be grateful for that. And it was around, you know, the psych ward stays and the self-evaluation and you know, the work that you go through. I realized that if I did absolutely everything in my power to not be standing here, and something bigger kept me here, I've got to be thankful for that. I've got to be grateful for that, and I've got to start helping some people who are in that pain themselves.
I can vouch for that. I mean, I'm just going to throw up this, Joey. Hopefully that photo comes up. There you go. If you think he's just making it up, I pulled that photo from years back. The doctor said, "Joe, you've got a second chance at life. What are you going to do with it?" And he said, "I've got a responsibility as an Aboriginal First Nations man to help my people." He's been doing it for a long time. So, I mean, you haven't just pulled that one out of the woodwork tonight, Joey. That's something you've said for a long, long time now.
What about the head on it?
A few greys there, mate.
I got stung by 1,000 bees.
Nah, mate.
Look, and again, and you bang on. And I realized that I had a second chance, and for me, this second chance has got to be better than what I was doing, because what I was doing wasn't working for me. And I realized that, you know, not just not just about helping my people, but helping all people. You know, I've been to over 200 communities around the country, and for me, and that bloke who just said g'day, brothers, Paddy Lawson
Lawson, shout out to Paddy.
We've been there from day dot. You know, Paddy's a great man, and was there back in Wagga when I first started. You know, come out public about this sort of stuff. And in 2014, there wasn't a great deal of people talking about it. So for me, it was about normalizing a conversation, and on the back of me talking about it, and it was the week of my second WBF world title that the defense of that belt was it made public. And the thing is, what it did was it hit home for me and for other people that everyone goes through it, and the amount of people that come up to me and said, Joe, you just put a voice to what it is that I go through. And I've never been able to talk about it, and I've never been able to have the courage. I thought that I was going mad myself. You know, for me, I had a responsibility in that to normalize a conversation. And if I had a platform through sport, you know, for a number of years, and I was a proud man in a smaller community, so I was, I guess, a bit of a profile man in a country community as well. So if I could just make the little impacts on people's life to be able to help them put a foot in front of the other, then I'll always do that. You know, I don't care if it's black, white, green, or purple people. You know, I'm about helping people. I'll help anyone who's going through a tough time. And how I got to, I guess, working predominantly in Aboriginal communities, because I'm an Aboriginal man, you know, and Aboriginal people connect to Aboriginal people, right? So
of course,
it was a conversation with that cultural man I spoke about again, Paul Gordon. Uncle Paul said to me when I was over in the US, he said, "It's brilliant that you're over there. I love that you're over there. Are you connecting with the Native Americans, because you know that they're like our family?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm connecting with Native Americans." And he said, "I want to ask you a question. Who's got the highest suicide rates in the world?" And I said, "Oh, our people. Why is that?" And he said, "Well, what are you doing over there?" He said, "You got a responsibility back home here, brother." And I was on the next flight home.
Yeah, I do remember that. But Joey, I just had a smirk on my face, because I know Paddy's put this message up. You have always told me it's my journey, I have to own it, but you're always in my corner when I needed assistance. And I know that's a whole nother story in itself. I know that you and Paddy have been together from the very get-go in this field. And I still remember in 2014, I moved back after having suicide attempts to Victoria, and I was on Instagram. And I seen a professional boxer, because I followed boxing. And I seen that he was started to do some posts about mental health. And I was like, oh, well, I'll give it a red hot go. I'll inbox him and see, I thank him for the work that he's doing, because what he was doing was resonating with me. That bloke was you.
He wouldn't reply, surely.
He replied to me, and I would nearly jump down to my skin, because I'd seen you fight. And I thought, you know, there's no chance. And this was at the very start of my mental health journey. I was only putting up some posts here and there and doing some little bits and pieces. I reached out to you. I said I was doing 250-kilometer run, or whatever the bullshit run I was doing.
I remember that.
You turned around and went out of your way to post about it, to spread it on your socials. And then when you came to Melbourne to catch up. So I did have a smirk there on my face, because you've been there for Paddy, you've been there for me from the very get-go. I mean, I sit in this chair now operating Mindful Oz, doing these things, and that was who was the first person to ever speak to me and help me on my path was Joey Williams. So, I mean, it's incredible.
You know, Matty, and I get that, you know, we've got some followers and stuff like that, and there's even some people out there that are lucky enough to have, fortunate enough to have other people handling their social media platforms for them. And I make it my goal, my quest, I don't know what you call it, but anyone who messages me, I reply to.
Yeah. So
even if it's just, yeah, brother, I feel you. Yeah, sister, I've got your pain. Here's this, support service and that sort of thing. Or even if it's just to acknowledge that I've seen their comment. Because how many times do we feel how many times do we feel that we've been silenced, or how many times that we feel that no one hears us? So even if it's just a double click to like that comment, to acknowledge that you've seen that comment, can mean so much to someone's evening, day, when they're battling in the silence, mate. So I'll always try and do that, and I encourage other people, don't ever be too good. Don't ever be too good for people.
I've been doing a lot of posts about it recently, just because I think the brain hates open loops. It likes fresh beginnings and likes to close them off. Yet you can send people messages and they don't have time to reply, or they like it now instead of replying, and that's meant to be the same thing. But it's literally more traumatic to the brain to leave people hanging than anything else. So I mean, I know what it's like to be in those positions of struggle the same way you just mentioned. And I mean, people have said to me for a long time within this organisation and other advocates around the world, Matt, you need to hand over your social media to someone else to allow people to reply to the messages, or you need to turn it off from certain hours. But I just know that if someone's reaching out to me, stranger even more so, in those crucial hours, I mean, I can only imagine how much pain they're going through to reach out to a complete stranger that they've never met, and to turn your back on that person, or to only double tap the thing, or to see it and not reply, must be horrific for them to experience. Because I know when I reached out to people like yourself and other people like Paddy, I haven't before, these people replied to me within minutes. And as I said, that it's the most traumatic thing for the brain is those open loops.
I think too, and you touched on that about talking about open loops or leaving people hanging, and you literally don't know what another person's going through at the time. So that's why I do it. But people have got to understand that I cop a hell of a lot of shit online too.
Yeah, you do.
On the back of what happened in 2016, with the national anthem and all of that sort of stuff, that started a conversation, or brought light to a conversation around the discomfort for Aboriginal people singing the national anthem. It isn't about the sorts of racial hate that I copped for that. It was horrific, man. So I don't always write back to people with a brilliant smile on my face when people are calling me X, Y, Z, and black, white, green, all this sort of stuff, mate. But I always try and acknowledge, but I don't acknowledge hate. I won't acknowledge hate, but I also know that hate comes from a place of discomfort within themselves. So. What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah. I think it's a very important lesson for everyone out there.
Something my dad said to me, and for the people who read my book will understand this. I had a fight at school, and I guess having a look at my boxing abilities later in my life, having a schoolyard scrap, I could handle myself all right. My dad, I got suspended at school because, we had the fight and all that sort of stuff. And I was at a Catholic boys' school and all that. It sort of doesn't go down well. But my dad said something to me that changed my interpretation of racism, and has done. And since that day, he said, "What happened?" And I said, "A guy called me a black CUNT." And he goes, okay. And I thought my dad would have my back 100%. Because my dad's a sterling guy, and I thought my dad would be like bang on it, right? And Dad said, "I want to ask you two questions. Did you win?" And I was like, went okay. Wasn't about winning and losing or anything like that. And he goes, "Now I want to ask you the second question. What color are you?" And I said, "I'm black." And he goes, "Well, you just punched a guy in the mouth to tell him the truth." He said, "You'll never, ever beat racism with violence. You'll only beat it with intelligence and facts." So from that day, I started to, be more smart in my responses to racism. Now, that doesn't mean that racism's cool and ever accepted, but it means that for me, I know that people with racial hate in their life are in a lot more uncomfortable and ugly position than what I am. If I'm dealing with it with humility, intelligence, and facts.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're talking about it, Joey, and I know you're so passionate about it, and I spoke to you about it before, I don't want people just to come on this episode and hold back. I want people, I reach out to people on purpose, knowing that the skill set that they bring to this is so crucial to every single person out there getting what they need. And we don't all wear the same colored pants from the same place and the same size. So why not go out there and find the pair that suits you? And this is why I've got you on. You have an incredible skill set that you've had from day one that allows you to heal the traumas and do the work that you do. Let's talk more about the well-being of Joey Williams and what it means to you to connect back to your roots and to your culture and to learn more about it, because I know that it hasn't always been there. There was a disconnect for a long time, which was probably the disconnect in all of your pain that you've experienced, and a lot of your healings come through connecting back. So you want to talk more to that?
Yeah, definitely. And this is a journey that, again, you're looking at the eastern states of Australia that was impacted by colonisation, first, and it was hit extremely hard, back, when it did, a couple of 100 years ago. So we have lighter skin, right? So, but for those who connect as First Nation people, you know that your identity of who you are isn't about the color of your skin. It's about, something much more deeper than that. But I grew up as a kid, and I always knew that I was Aboriginal, but I didn't quite fit in, right? But now that's because my skin color of what I look like, I was too black to be white, but I was too white to be black. I didn't really fit in either world, and I had to go through that journey of finding out who the real me is, and there was so much in the reconnection, but and there are many different peoples around our country, First Nation people that have this disconnection that in the way that I'm talking about it has probably never happened. They're lucky to have their language still and their ceremonies and the rites and rituals and that have happened for thousands of years and continue to happen, where us on the East Coast had a great deal of what we had taken away. Like, I'm a Wiradjuri man, but I'm sitting here talking to you in English, and I know a handful of words in my native language, so we had a great deal of who we are taken away from us, and it's about reconnecting to that, and it has filled a massive hole and a void to who I am, and it has done a great deal in helping to heal trauma, like not only intellectually, but as far as neurally as well. So a lot of the work that I do now, whilst I've been involved in suicide prevention, for a lot of years, a lot of the work that I do and understanding and having the knowledge around trauma and what it does within the body and to the body and how it plays out is that, a lot of negative behaviors that are happening in communities of all people are a response to trauma. So, for me, if Aboriginal people are dying more than anyone in the world, as I talked to about, the conversation with Uncle Paul, if Aboriginal people are dying more than, anyone in the world when it comes to a lot of these suicide rates, we're probably not dying from, we're dying from disconnection. We're dying from trauma. We're dying from stuff that's a hell of a lot, deeper, and it's the surface behaviors that we're showing that are the things that are getting band-aided, right? And in my acceptance speech last year at the 2019 Australian Mental Health Prize, where I was thankfully enough to be the co-winner with Christine Morgan, I said in my speech, and I looked dead in the eye of Scott Morrison, who was sitting 10 metres in front of me. I said, in the millions,
I'll get them up.
in the millions of dollars, isn't that the rose between thorns? Or thorns between roses. I said to him, in the millions of dollars that we're putting into communities to help close the gap, it's all a band-aid. We're not addressing the real issues, the root causes of what's happening in our communities. In essence, you're spending millions and millions of dollars to non-government organisations, and a lot of the time non-Indigenous non-government organisations, to go out there and babysit our people, and it's not working, and it hasn't worked and won't work until we get a ground up approach where we get Aboriginal people leading the conversation with this stuff. And I've just seen reports recently. Auntie Pat Turner talking about she's been a great force around close the gap, and talking about a combined approach or having First Nation people lead the conversation. Like what's so scary about letting us take control of ourselves?
Yeah, it's the same with the lived experience of the whole mental health and wellbeing space. I mean, it's still something that we don't hold enough value for. And I get bookings for Northern Territory and Darwin and in these First Nations communities, and I've always said to you, I've always tried to dish them off to you or give them to people that are actually familiar or experienced in those fields. I just think it's ridiculous. I could go and have an impact. There's no doubt about it. But there's if someone can do a better job of it, if someone's going to relate better to them, we're dealing with people's lives here, and we need to have the best in the play, and you have to have your best players on the field. And I think that's just something that we've lacked for a long time. It's knowing your strengths and outsourcing your weaknesses if we really care about these people's lives.
Knowing your strengths and outsourcing your weaknesses, I like that. Because and that probably shows to people's humility as well, is that when there's a dollar figure involved, we'll jump at it. Right? Yeah. We got to realize that if there's someone else better than us out there doing it, let's hand it over. Handball it on, because it's about the people at the end of the day.
Yeah, if you're doing it for the right reasons. I mean, it's not Macca's where if you miss their order, they miss out on a fries or a chicken nugget. If we stuff up the order,
I miss out on my fries and chicken nuggets, I'll give you the tip.
Me too, actually. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we've got to take this a little bit more serious. It's not just going through the drive-through and missing out on something in your meal. If you stuff up or you say something that's not impactful in that very moment, I mean, I'm sick of people telling me, Matt, as long as you impact one person in every audience. That's bullshit. If you don't impact 100% of the people in the audience, you haven't done your job right, because we're dealing with people's lives. So if there's someone in that auditorium at that time or in that community that I get a booking and I go out there and I don't say the right words in that right time, I've done an injustice to that community and to my role as a mental health advocate. So, it's something that obviously you can feel that passion of mine, because I think that there's a lot of people in this field that are just taking the piss, lining their pockets full of money and working in fields that they absolutely have no idea about.
Yeah, and again, it probably talks to ego, getting pats on the back,
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not about to sit here tonight and delve into that, because at the end of the day, my thing is about my journey, and I'm going to do the absolute best in front of the people that I sit with every single day. What I do is probably going to change a little bit this year, and obviously it's changed for everyone this year with everything that's happened. But I'll be based at home a lot more. And it's probably ironic that we're saying it because during isolation, everyone's based at home more, Joe. But when all this stuff lifts, I'm looking to implement some stuff in the communities that I've grown up in, the communities that
I love that
that I'm living. Because again, it's someone said to me recently, it's great, Joe. You go around the world, you go around to many different communities around the country, but you're not known in your own community. I was like, ooh, that stung a little bit, but it's probably right.
I think that's one thing that I've fortunately enough been able to do in my journey as I stuck to Gippsland. And I mean, I get very territorial of people trying to come down and come and work in a town that's not actually that they're familiar with, or the people I mean, low-hanging fruit. We've just seen the bushfires run through there, and a lot of people are like, oh, let's go to Gippsland. There's funding available. And it's just like, hang on a minute, you didn't want to go to Gippsland when everything was fine and dandy. So, I'm big on staying in your own communities and working to change what existed for my upbringing and for the people that are down there at the moment and living in emotional distress. So, I'm a huge one for that.
For me, I'm not gonna impact on, or make absolute significant change in where I am, but I'm gonna do the best I can.
Correct.
And I'm like, for people who know that I've been in communities, that I'm going to give it a red hot crack when I go.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to give you all of me. And so for me, it's about trying to make some impact on the ground of where I'm at. And you know what? It keeps me at home a little bit more.
Yeah.
The last 3 months has been the longest I've been at home with any of
Long
my
time.
kids. With any of my kids, man. Like, that hurts me to say that. But what a positive thing out of all this as well is that it's taught me how to be a better dad.
Yeah.
It's given me tips and tools that I never had, and that I probably neglected with my older kids. And I'm hugely disappointed in myself in that. And again, my roles in my life are going to be determined by the impact that I have, more so personally than professionally. I've got a responsibility, to 5 beautiful kids that that are all on their journeys. They're all on their different journeys, and they're all on their paths. And I've just got to be there to help try and be the best I can. And I haven't been. And the thing is, people have said that, and from the outside looking in, but I've got to own that. I've got to own that and take control of that. And it's not saying that I was bad. It's saying that I know that I can do better. So for me, it's about doing the best I can, not being the best.
No,
the best I can.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about COVID and the restrictions that we're in, and obviously you correlate we've talked throughout this episode about connecting to country, and we talked about walkabout, and I know that nature's a big part of you getting away and refreshing. Being that we're in restrictions, you haven't been able to do that. Is that something that's been really impactful to your journey over the last couple of months?
Yeah, it has. It has.
Yeah.
There's certain times of the year where we go off and do certain things that probably aren't to be talked about on a public setting, and restrictions and social isolation and having more than 2 people in one place has impacted on that. But again, we that strong old fella that I always refer to, Uncle Paul Gordon. He talks about there's always a lesson in all these sort of things. What these lessons are, we just got to make sure that we learn them. Otherwise, they'll keep happening. So, if it's about being a better dad, if it's about being better at home, if it's about putting some time and effort into the things that I've had on the back burner for the last 2 or 3 years, it's about that. It's about learning these lessons. So when we hopefully we don't get into these times again, but it's about learning lessons to become better people. During this whole time of COVID, I've said 3 things. We have to adapt in what we do. We've got to innovate in how we do it, and we've got to grow. Adapt, innovate, and grow. Be the best that we can in everything we do every single day.
What does your wellness plan look like? I mean, I know that connection to country is huge, and being back in touch with your culture and your people has been a huge healer for you. What are some other things that make up the Joe Williams Blueprint to Wellness?
Yeah, so for me, it's around the values that I live with.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the practices that I do. As long as I'm living with those values, and those values are the 5 pillars to the enemy within the organization, and that's learning to live with more love, care, respect, humility, and compassion. And how I do that is, that sets on the interactions and the actions that I have every single day. So for me, when I'm having a tough time, I've got to obviously do more exercise, but also learn to slow my head down a little bit. When in the times of mania and so forth as well. So for me, my wellness just looks like do what you got to do to get well. And for me, again, I talk about those 5 values that I live with, and it's love, care, respect, humility, compassion. But doing that in things like volunteering, doing that in things like serving other people, doing that in things like your exercise. All the stuff as much as you do it for your body or your physical body, do it for your mental and emotional body as well. But also for other people around you. For me, I'm lucky that one of my biggest things of wellness is writing. Obviously, I've seen in a couple of the comments that people have purchased my book, and and this by any means isn't a plug. But some of the most important things in that book is the wellness plan that I've got in the back. In the back probably quarter of the book is about what I've done, what I've implemented, and what I continue to implement still to this day. And I'll probably add a couple of more into that. It's writing and learning. We get to a point where we are as people, physically we get to a point and then we grow, right? So for me, my brain gets to a point and then it's got to grow again. So I went to uni and started to learn about trauma recovery and the impacts of the brain. And then at the moment, I'm filling out an application for something which, I'll give you the tip, my teachers wouldn't have thought that I would have been doing at school. So
what is it?
Stay tuned for that, brother.
Stay tuned for that. Do you want to quickly plug the book, where we can find the book? And actually,
yeah, so
I don't know if Mel's watching, but I might purchase one off your signed copy and give it away tonight. How's that sound?
Yeah, easy, done. It may take. We'll work out how to get it signed and off to you, because Mel's over in WA and I'm over in the East Coast as well.
Might have to forge one.
Mel's gonna have to, or stamp it. No, I won't do that. But Mel's gonna have to send it over to me, and then I've got to open this book and go, oh, cool, what's this book for? I've got to send it, the old memory thing. But yeah, get the book through the website pretty much. www.joewilliams.com.au/shop. That's the best place to get it. A lot of small bookstores in communities, they might buy it and then sell out of it and then won't restock it. So it's easier. You're going to get one when you get hold of us at the website, because Mel's pretty much always, I won't say always, but pretty much always stocked, unless I do a post sometimes, and then she gets an influx of orders, and she's like, did you do a post again? You could have told me. I only had 3 at home here. Now I've got 8 orders and they're going to have to wait. I'm like, not bad.
I'm out of them here. I took them over to America for you, but I don't have any still on the shelf here, but I'll have to sort that out and give them away to people. But I've just got Geraldine Notman here, Joey, and she goes, hi, Matt, hope you're well. Love always. I find our biggest problem is consistency with care and self-care. You got any tips and tricks for the players at home that are watching, Joey, in terms of developing consistency with our self-care? I know it's something that I think, you might have just mentioned it, and you just do what you can do to stay well. But what are we doing all the time to maintain that those places where we are not well are few and far between?
Yeah, I listen to a stack load of podcasts, and at the moment I listen with a guy called Eric Thomas.
He's good.
The hip-hop preacher. Over in the US, and he does this amazing clip. And when I first heard about it years ago, when I was watching boxing motivation clips, because it was clips of Floyd Mayweather training and fighting and all of this, but he talked about a simple quote in it: how much do you want it? And how we got to it, he met this guy at 4 a.m. at the beach, and he said, walk out in the water, and he said, keep going out further. So he's underneath the water, and he held his head down, and he said, what did you want to do when you're underneath the water? And he said, all I wanted to do was breathe, right? And he said, when you want to be successful as much as you want to breathe, that's when you'll be successful. So for me, in that tip, he always says, how much do you want it? How much do you want to be successful? How much? Well, I wanted to be successful as much as I wanted to breathe, right? So for me, I find to get consistency in care and self-care is about priority. We can prioritize things a little bit, or we can do it a lot. For me, if I don't prioritize my well-being, my self-care, and hang around toxic people, who goes down? Me, right? So it's not a priority when that comes to that case. So what we have to do is put our well-being as a priority, because there ain't no one who's going to look after it better than what you do, right? So we're going to make sure that well-being and self-care is our priority, and the people who are with you and around you will understand that, because you will be a better person then. One of the clips I always, when people talk to me about heartache and breakups, it's a clip that that I always refer to is Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. They talk about how I can't rely on Jada for my happiness. I have to rely on me for my happiness, you know. So we can't rely on other people to do the things for us that's going to be the best for us. We're going to rely on us to do the best thing for us. And it's tricky when sometimes our mind plays tricks on us, but that's when we have the people around us to help give us that little bit of a nudge in those times, to do that.
I love that, because Will Smith also talks about in the same breath the role of looking after ourselves and self-care isn't just to dump our shit onto someone else. That's not what we're here as humans. It's to look after our own pile of shit and to acknowledge that we have a pile of shit and it needs attending to. But if everyone throws their pile of shit on someone, all of a sudden their pile of shit gets mountains bigger, and that's not fair of anyone. So putting wellness back in our own hands by doing the things that Joe's just talked about. I mean, I've just been getting in the habit of writing down every guest and what they talk about on the episode. And so far we've got learning, nature, family, exercise, value alignment, volunteering, writing, learning, podcasts. I mean, there's some, just to give you the hot tip of the things that exist to us with every single waking minute. And as everyone would have heard me say a million times, 1,440 minutes in a day, and to use as many of those as you can on yourself. And as Joe said, no one will be upset around you if they truly care about you, because you'll be a better person for it.
One of the things, Matty, as well, and I heard this on the Eric Thomas podcast, but I also heard it from a cousin of mine, Anita Heiss, who's an author, a fantastic Aboriginal author. If you haven't looked at, if you're into reading chicklet, as they say, get all Anita's books. But one thing Anita said to me when I wrote my book, she said, if you're going to be a writer, you got to read other people's stuff too. You got to make it a habit to continue to read. And then Eric Thomas started to talk about it as well. He's like, don't just listen to podcasts, don't just watch documentaries, don't just watch TV, don't just listen to music. He said, go out there and get the books that interest you and develop your brain. You know, consistently trying to learn more. Which when we're learning, it's doing all sorts of positive impact to our brain. So I ain't someone who's ever sat down and read, but I'm making a conscious effort to make sure that I do that. I'm reading a book at the moment. I haven't got it in here. The Big O. It's about you being a Melbourne guy. You might know a guy called Olsen Filipina, who was a fantastic rugby league man, who was a Pacific Islander. He actually played with my dad. My dad gets a mention in the book, but he was a terrific man, and it's all about how probably at the time people didn't understand Pacific Island players. Now the NRL is 60-70% Pacific Island players. So he was a brilliant person, and has a great understanding of again, what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to plug the book, but what I'm trying to do is talk about how to consistently and continually try and develop your brain.
Oh, so important. And I guess, Joey, on the back of that,
my teacher's probably sitting there from school going, where was this guy when he was at school?
Oh, they'd say the same thing about me too, mate. I mean, it's just someone was saying to me earlier today about breaking rules, and I said I broke a lot of them and it got me nowhere, and they said, well, I stuck by the rules and it never got me anywhere either. So I mean, I wish I had stayed in school and paid a little bit more attention, but here we are, and it's never too late to do the right thing. But I want to talk more about on that, Joey, because we talk about books and podcasts, and just while we give people tangible resources at home, I mean, I've dropped Eric Thomas in there. What are some other? Who are the people that you've learnt and gained a lot of knowledge and experience off personal development, growth, and all these healing processes? There'd be lots of people watching, wondering how we find the magic that we find.
Yeah, people that have gone through certain things and succeeded, and everyone's different, right? So everyone's going mad over David Goggins at the moment, right? I can't click to him. That's just
there's a lot.
Well, I can't click to him because that regimental sort of armed forces type that triggers me. That triggers my trauma of a couple of 100 years of being talked down to like that. For me, it doesn't work. What inspires me, and I said it driving home with Courtney this afternoon. There was a lady running, and she was doing her absolute best to run. And she was, she was an elderly lady, and she was a lady who was a bigger lady. That inspires the absolute shit out of me.
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely no excuse. I just went, man, I love that. I absolutely love. I get inspired by people. I don't get inspired by the guy who looks amazing. I get inspired by people who spend every ounce of their energy to turn up and really get it. And obviously people that there's a brilliant woman who I listen to her podcast nonstop. A lady called Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. She's from the US, and she and her work so a lot of her podcasts and again TED Talks and things like that have influenced a lot of the learning that I've come up the direction I've had around trauma and trauma recovery. Talking about ACE tests in the US, which is adverse childhood experiences, and Dr. Nadine Burke Harris and the guy that both you and I have connected with around addictions and so forth like that as well, Johan Ari. So just people who are how do you say it? Changing the rhetoric. People who are changing the rhetoric and coming up with new ways to do things. Again, and people who get out there and turn up against all odds. They're the people that inspire me.
Absolutely. That's why I mentioned at the start in your bio, I love anyone that goes against the grain and does things differently, because you only have to look as far as the newspaper to realize that what we're doing is not working. So if it's insanity to keep doing the things that we're doing and believe that they're doing well. So it doesn't hurt to go against the grain and challenge people from time to time, as long as the challenge comes from the place of love. So, Joey, we've talked about your places for knowledge, your favorite books and podcasts. I know we talked about Johnny Lewis as well, but who are some of the people that have been there step by step and been big influential players in your road to recovery and now 15 years of being sober?
Sobriety. There's two guys in my sobriety that started me on the path, and those two guys have been brilliant in my life. A guy called Chris Ferguson. Fergo, mate, an amazing guy. Is a fantastic photographer. Just lived over in the US for the past 10 years as a fashion photographer. He was there for me in the early days. He planted the seed in my mind about sobriety and alcoholism, and a guy called Tommy Simpson. Tommy Simpson was working at the Rabbitohs at the time, and walked me through the doors, many times to when and took many phone calls when I was struggling for help around my alcoholism and addiction stuff. And as you said, Johnny, Billy Hussain, great man. But I'm always close to my big brother and my dad, my mum, and my dad, and I'm someone who, whilst I love my family more than anything in the entire world, I'm very different too. But I always, look after someone who looks after me, type thing, that sort of guy. But I'm someone who I keep my cards close, man. I'm obviously someone who's out speaking in the public eye a lot, but I'm also someone who this is why COVID has been a blessing for me, because I like being home. I like being away from people at times. So people are like, how has it been for you during isolation? I'm like, it's been fantastic. It's kept me away from people. That doesn't mean that I don't like people. It just means that I like my own time. I'm someone who is, what do they say? An extroverted introvert.
Yeah, that's me too.
I look like I'm very much out there, but I'm someone who likes to keep within the walls of my comfort. So Yeah, man, it's been challenging times for everyone, but I'm lucky that I'm constantly talking with people on socials, and I'm doing things like this, and always just checking in on people and making sure people are well.
Well, I'm going to change the theme of things here. I'm going to go a little bit left to center, but I know that the answers that I get out of these tell a lot about someone. So, any superpower you could have, what would it be and why, Joey?
Language. Speak different languages. Might say that's a superpower, but for me, that's connection. For me, and connection is the superpower. So if I can speak all the different languages around the world, that would keep me connected to people around the world, right? There's a brilliant story about the lyrebird. You know what a lyrebird is? How it makes all you hear a lyrebird out in the bush, it makes all the same sounds as all the other, it mimics the other birds, right? So the story I heard about the lyrebird is that he was given the gifts by the creator to speak all the different languages.
Love that. What an answer. We have yet to have that in 14 episodes, and this is why I know I've said it on others, but people think I'm weird for asking these bizarre questions, but there's a lot to them, and as you can just tell by that answer, what a beautiful answer when one of this guy's values is connection, and he's so big on it, and then you pull out an answer like that just aligns him, and that's why he says that he's well when he's aligned with who he really is. In saying that, you can provide a dinner space or a day, your last 24 hours with 3 people, dead or alive. Who would they be and why? Let's go with dinner party, actually.
Man, I'm a black fella. We can't have just 3 people. We're going to have up there,
You got rules here, Joey.
I don't know. I don't know. I was asked this recently. Can we go back to that? Can we go to these other questions and I'll go back to that?
Of course we can.
Is that cool?
Yeah, of course we can. Well, let's finish on that then, because the next couple of questions are a little bit more serious than the ones that I just had. I want to know advice for young First Nations people. If you could give young First Nations people out there that find this at a later date or need some advice from Joey Williams, what would it be?
Be the best you can be. Be the best you can be, and when you be that,
doesn't it?
Be the best that you can be, and when you be that, improve on it. There's always room for improvement, different things that we do. So be the best that you can be and improve on that. And don't let someone else's opinion define who you are. I'm someone who is constantly challenging people's opinions of me because of who they see and what they see of the person or the man online. People who sit and spend time with me, as you would know, I'm nothing like a lot of the person that you see out, out online and things like that. The person who I really am is someone who loves a hell of a lot, and I'll try and do the best that I can for other people, and I hate disappointing people. So for me, I can't remember what the
being better than the person that you were the day before.
Be better than the person. Just be the best that you can and improve on that.
Well, it's Matthew McConaughey, I think, that sits there and says that in his famous speech, his biggest inspiration was himself in 10 years' time. And so 10 years down the track, they asked him, well, who's your biggest inspiration now? And he goes, me, another 10 years from now. So, I mean, if you can think and have a mindset like that, you'll always strive to be and do better. And it doesn't matter who you are, who's listening, who's watching to this. We can all be better than the person we are right now. Advice for people in bettering themselves. If you could give 1, 2, or 3 things to the people that are at home right now, going through whatever they're going through, what would you encourage, Joey Williams?
Be the best that you can be, and just try and improve that.
How do you achieve that?
Like let's not get caught up in trying to be someone else. That's one thing with social media is that we try and be someone else all the time. Let's just be the best version of us, and then try and improve on that. And that's through, again, like how I would do that would be lived with more of the values that I speak about: love, care, respect, humility, compassion. There isn't a great deal that is negative in those five values. So, for me, I tell people, and I try and do it myself, and it doesn't always work, but try the best of your ability, live with more love, care, respect, humility, compassion, And that will enable you to be a good version of yourself. When you are being that good version of yourself or the best version of yourself, try and improve on that.
What would you tell young Joey Williams, but prior to hitting the drink, prior to suppressing his emotions, if you could just speak to that little young fella once again and just grab him, shake him, cuddle him, kiss him, what would you tell him, mate?
Have a red hot go, brother. We're in for a ride. No, you know what? I'm. You know, you probably could frame that as in, what would you tell 15-year-old you, right? And I've got a 15-year-old boy, so that's what I tell him. You know, don't, you know, the school system, right? I know the school system, you know, is there to do it, you know, to get the results out of kids and stuff like that. But don't get hung up on you know, results in schools and stuff like that. Man, I didn't pass a single subject at school. Actually, I did one, music. I didn't even pass PE.
No, me neither.
I was a sportsman. You know, like, so don't get hung up on things that you can't do. Let's just improve on the things that you can do. You know, and just try your best. Try your best. You know, like, and only you know if it's the best or not. You know, not someone else. And you know, my coaches were critical, or my teachers were critical, or my parents were critical because I didn't try my best. But only I knew if it was the best or not. So whoever you are, whatever you're going through, just try your best every single minute of the day.
Love that. What's next for Joe Williams? I know you wanted to keep a lid on it. What have you got for us?
I set about during this isolation period to get 3 things that I wanted to do in October. I've written a draft for a new book, which I've all but finished. So I just got to get someone hopefully to pick it up, which is a bit different. Talks about behavioural challenges for young people and helping young people that have behavioural challenges and how to help them through those tough times. It's a story about building a relationship between non-Indigenous Australia and First Nations Australia. It's a story about culture. It's a story about learning to walk in 2 worlds. And you know, that book, I think, is probably the age dynamic or geographic of that is probably about a 11-year-old to a 15-year-old. So
Love that.
Yeah, so the ages where we've got the ability to really learn and make some impact on not only our path but other people's path as well. So that was step 1 of what I wanted to do in this isolation. Step 2 was the trauma recovery program that we're looking to be implemented pretty soon in the next couple of months. That we're looking to pilot it in the next couple of months. You know, when things ease off and we get some other different system stuff in place, and then finish my application to uni that I'm looking to go back and study.
I love that, mate. And I can't wait to see how your journey unfolds. If you could look down the barrel to someone that's struggling with mind and behavioural health issues right now, that is in a world of emotional pain, that was similar situation to you many, many years ago, what would you say?
I want to bring up a post by my best mate Jay Taki, and Jaya, and you'll understand why. When you know Jaya, you'll understand why. I'm bringing it up now, and because this talks to what I would say to someone. I would say 3 words, right? This isn't the post, but if I'm looking at someone dead in the eye who's going through a tough time, I would say 3 words. I got you. I got you. Because everything that tells us when we're here tells us no one cares, tells us no one that our life doesn't matter, tells us that any decision we make is worthless. So I needed someone to tell me, Joe, I got you. No matter what you're feeling, no matter what you're saying, no matter how you feel, I got your back. And to me, she wrote, I got you. My I got you is powerful. I won't say what it says there. My I got you is powerful. Like, I really got you. Through trial and error, through breakdown, through breakthrough, through sunshine and storm, I'm here. That's powerful, man. You know, like someone who ain't gonna judge and sit there and go, you know what, brother, I don't care what you say, I got you back. Right? We can deal with the rest later.
The human being is certainly wired for love, belonging, connection, and connection's very different to each and every one of us, as Joey's mentioned throughout this episode. But please, if anyone is listening to this right now, we both got you. I promise you that. Reach in, reach out, do whatever it looks like. But please know that there's people here that know and appreciate you and can see you for the beauty that you are, just as you are, not as society tries to make you. So please hang in there. Joey, let's go back to finish it on a lighter way. Let's hope you got something for us now. People you could spend on a dinner date, mate, and pick their brain. Who would it be and why?
Obama,
Mm-hmm.
Tones and I.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And I've got someone else. I just can't think who it was. My grandmother.
Love it. Love it. Is there a reason for Obama?
I just think he's slick. You know, there's something about Obama that, you know, and there's, don't get me wrong, there's, you know, in the machine of what America is, it can be very ugly. And there, you know, there's hell of a lot of, if you're into conspiracy and New World Order and all that sort of stuff, there's a hell of a lot of stuff out there that points to some ugly things about the administration. But I just think Obama's slick. You know, it just, you know, he's a colored man. He's someone who's, you know what sums up Obama to me? When he was walking through the White House that day, and the security guard was there, and he went, boom, and did a knuckles with the security dude. You know,
like
boom, the small things, man. Yeah. The small things. Tones and I, because I think she is an absolute amazing artist. Just her sound, her vibe, the fact that she comes from being a busker. You know, like how amazing and how incredible is that? Yeah, and you know, probably someone who, like I said, my grandmother. I said my grandmother because I don't know. You got to have a strong black woman at the table to call the shots, you know, and that's just me, and that's how I was raised, and you know, everything to. You know, my grandmother, my dad's mum, my dad is a tough man, and all his brothers tough men. My nan raised, you know, an incredible amount of children, you know, by herself. You know, with help and stuff like that. But the resilience of that woman, you know, is. You know, what I wanted when the restrictions lifted was to go and see my nan. I want to go and see my nan. And that's only a couple of hours away, but every time I go through Cowra, I just go and sit with my nan because, you know, we sit and we might talk about old stories from, you know, which stories of my grandfather and stories of my father and, you know, the stories of the old days of struggle and you know, you need someone. And for me and our culture and our way of life and my belief, you need that matriarch. So I need a strong black woman to call the shots when it's time to eat, when it's time for me to clean up the table. You know, is on her watch.
Love it. And there's so many things we can talk about, Joey. I know we didn't get to touch on things like concussion, things like tremor therapy, all these things. There might have to be a part 2 to this. As I said in the bio, there's so many things that you've done, that you've achieved, that you've experienced that no one else ever will. There's things that there's ways in which you operate that are a huge help to the people out there. I'm so grateful for the work that you do on the hardest edges of love and life. I'm very excited to see what's next for you. Joey Williams at university is a scary prospect, but let's see what happens, because whatever you do, mate, whatever you touch and turns to gold. So I know that it'll be brilliant.
Listen to this one, all right?
Okay.
Something I wrote the other night. I've got 12 months goals personally and professionally that I've told only a handful of people. I've got a 20-year plan that's going to scare the shit out of people. They're my future goals, but I've got to work hard every day now. Otherwise, they won't happen. I need to do better, be better to improve and achieve.
A little bit of an accountability post there. We'll see how you're operating in 20 years' time, but I have absolutely no doubt in the world
Know about it.
that you will achieve exactly what you set out to achieve. There isn't much that you haven't been able to do every time you've said that that's what you're going to do. And I thank you from the bottom of the heart, Joey, for coming on and sharing it with us today. As I said, there might have to be a part 2. There's a lot of things like your concussion and tremor therapy and things like that would be brilliant to talk about, but we haven't had time. But I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on, for being a biggest advocate of Mindful Oz, of First Nations people, of wellness, as I said, on the hardest edges of love and life. But most importantly, I don't sit in this chair tonight being able to have this conversation with you if you didn't respond to that Instagram message all those years ago. And it really kickstarted my career and got me to a place of wellness working amongst this field. So, as I said, to keep operating for every single person out there listening tonight, I love and appreciate you, and I know Joey does too. If you can all operate out of the same values of Joey, and that's love, care, respect, humility, and compassion, this world's going to be a far better place, not only for you, but for all the people around you, and that's a really beautiful thing. So use those minutes, as we talked about today, tomorrow, and every day after that, to wake up and do the things that you want to do, to be the person that you want to be. Believe in yourself, learn to love yourself a little bit more. And just be more of yourself, because you're just beautiful just the way you are. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening in tonight. Thank you to Joey for tuning in. And please, everyone, follow the work of Joey Williams. And as I've said with previous guests, don't just go follow his website, follow his Instagram and his Facebook. Reach out, see how you can help, how you can join in. If you work in an organisation that works with Indigenous youth, please contact this man. There's no better in the country than Joe Williams to help with these kids and to provide the skills and resources to know what they need in these difficult times. So from me at Mindful Oz, and for Peanut under my feet that's been chewing on my cords, I love you and appreciate every single person. Yeah, hang on.
Get everyone home. That's your puppy dog. Just to clarify that.
Hang on. I'm here, Peanut. I think she's chewing me cords all night. So here we go.
I don't know where you're going with that.
Yeah, well, didn't you? Could you see her during the podcast?
I could.
She's half asleep, the little thing. Look at it.
Thanks,
I appreciate every single person out there. As I said, look after yourselves, take care, and use those minutes accordingly tomorrow and every single day after that to be a better person, because you deserve that, and so does the people around you. So love from me. We'll be back next week. We don't know who we got on yet. Maybe it's just a solo episode, or maybe we question Peanut. We'll see how we go. But I love and appreciate you all, and very grateful for every single person out there tonight.
Thanks, my man. You take care.